that's when lawyers, that's when public citizens, that's when people who have been trained, as I mentioned, we train one another with continuing legal education. We would meet with ICER to share materials and information. It is just all about corroborating one another, being there for one another, and more than anything, just staying calm. And it's one of the more difficult things that I've had to learn on the spot. Hugging somebody is a great way to de-escalate, something I learned, right then and there. But that's what it takes. It takes everybody to just believe that they are a little bit braver than they might think they are. And not everybody's going to be showing up with the same mission. But that's why we need to make sure we show up together, and that if you have a megaphone, what you're saying into that is, be calm, get off the streets. We don't people want, getting run over. And that is just our role. That is our role as public citizens, as lawyers, as servants of the United States.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here this afternoon. We will now take a 20-minute break. There'll be some lunch served out there, so feel free to grab something to eat, and then we'll reconvene in 20 minutes for panel 3A. Thank you. And by the way, the food is from Carnitas Urupan, a business that was affected by the ICE activity in Little Village and Pilsen. So please enjoy.
Oh no, go to Puerto Rico. Thank you, of course.
So great. Thank God. So much.
We're not, this is fun.
Here together,
Yeah, thank you.
Which one was it? So that this one was given up? Audio issues, or is it interference?
It's not the interference, it's the like the government.
Oh, there was that. But I'm hearing like the noise in the background too. It's on the live
It
stream.
might be
So,
video.
but I'm like, it's coming from the mixer. You're getting audio from the mixer too, right?
help families navigate systems that are often not designed with us in mind. Today, Black immigrants represent 1 in 10 Black people in the United States. Black immigrant communities in the Chicago region represent a rich plurality of languages, racial and ethnic identity, cultural practices, and lived experiences. Chicago is home to an extraordinarily diverse population of Black immigrants and refugees hailing from more than 50 African countries, as well as Caribbean countries like Haiti and Jamaica, and Central and Latin American countries like Belize and Colombia. In fact, 10% of trying. Got it. No worries. Okay. So in fact, 10% of all Black immigrants in the US actually also self-identify as Latino. Thank you for the invitation to join you here today and to share the impact of immigration enforcement on our communities. What we're witnessing in our communities today is nothing short of sheer terror, marked by fear, uncertainty, and profound distress among families and individuals navigating heightened immigration enforcement and ongoing instability. Families are too afraid to step outside their homes, too afraid to go to work, take their children to school, and even go to buy groceries to feed their families. In our offices, we have seen a significant decline in families seeking services to the tune of about an average of 60% in decline. We're seeing hardworking mothers and fathers torn from their children and disappeared. In some cases, families are not aware of what has even happened to their loved ones, and we are often the ones that inform them after checking the ICE detainee locator that their family members have been detained. We're seeing asylum seekers who are following the rules, attending court hearings and complying with ICE check-ins, only to be detained, denied due process, and transferred thousands of miles away from their families. It's not lost on us here, those of us here, that Black immigrants positioned at the intersection of race and immigration status face compounded forms of exclusion. Although Black immigrants represent only about 5% of the undocumented population, they have historically accounted for more than 20% of those deported on criminal grounds. In this moment of escalating immigration enforcement, these disparities are only becoming more pronounced. Uncertainty and rapidly changing policies around temporary protected status for people from countries like Haiti, Ethiopia, and Sudan have also deeply destabilized Black immigrant communities across Chicago. The prolonged legal limbo has led to severe economic and emotional hardships, widespread housing and food insecurity, and the constant threat of family separation for hundreds of people. Black immigrants also face continued challenges in their asylum proceedings. For example, for people from Mauritania, a country where Black Mauritanians face enduring impacts of slavery, currently, racial discrimination and state violence, the asylum approval rates are just about 30%. Legal representation, as we know, can mean the difference between a family staying together and being separated. Earlier this year, we also saw Somali asylum seekers in Chicago being subjected to a coordinated fast-tracked immigration court docket that accelerated final hearings, severely restricting access to legal counsel and undermining due process. Even beyond the courtroom, Black immigrants continue to encounter structural barriers to accessing support. In our direct service, this includes, I want to say, access to information, right, and legal services, but also language access. In our direct service work, only about a fifth of those we serve pick English as their preferred language. Languages such as French, Wolof, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, and Arabic are among the primary languages spoken by most recently arriving community members. We know that when language access is not a barrier, people are better able to express themselves, to fully to understand their rights and make informed decisions about their future. Recent immigration enforcement actions have also affected those of us who provide support to immigrant communities, creating heightened fear, uncertainty, and strain among service providers, advocates, and community leaders. However, in closing, I want to share, since I'm running out of time, despite these harmful narratives and aggressive federal raids and enforcement tactics, what we have seen in Chicago is growing solidarity and organizing across communities among African Americans, Latinos, and immigrant communities who recognize these sweeping actions as a collective threat to civil rights and human dignity. This shared response reflects a deepening commitment to mutual protection, advocacy, and collective action. And it is this solidarity that should give us both hope and the fortitude to continue to fight back. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Nubia Batista Willman, and I serve as the Chief Programs Officer at Latinos Progresando. I'm also an attorney licensed in Illinois for over 15 years, specializing in immigration law. Latinos Progresando is a 28-year-old nonprofit, and we work alongside residents of Little Village, Marshall Square, South Lawndale, where we provide immigration legal services, family support, and community education. The community we serve is one of the largest Mexican and Latino communities in the Midwest that for decades have provided a cultural vibrancy and economic support to the city and state. Every month, Latinos Progresando hosts a food pantry with Nourishing Hope, feeding 50 families and senior citizens with their main source of food. Last fall, as staff hauled heavy boxes, a shrill sound pierced the air. Whistles, alerting us that ICE was nearby and unleashing their enforcement on our community. Soon after the whistles, the phones rang, families apologetic and sad, explaining they wouldn't be able to make it for pickup. Through this statement, I will share the disruptive harm this federal targeting inflicted on our community. But as I do this, I want all of us to think about the level of deep terror it would take for you to decide to sacrifice your family's source of food. Operation Midway Blitz began close to Mexican Independence Day. This day is widely celebrated in Chicago, with communities and families attending parades, civic events, and hosting celebrations. The city is a mecca to many Midwestern Latinos who share pride in this cultural diaspora. This September, instead of seeing families and people waving flags, we saw them taken with fear as they learned ICE would begin their raids. Then quickly, we saw that there was no good or bad immigrant in the eyes of the federal government. In fact, 97% of the individuals detained had no criminal record. And instead, residents in our community, from the most vulnerable to even U.S. citizens, would be harmed by these actions. From one day to the next, workers had to make the decision of whether a day's wage was worth risking being detained. The lack of workers impacted projects, services, and their own financial stability. A college student who should have been getting ready for a new semester instead started getting up at 4 a.m. to work for their parents' food cart to keep their parents safe while bringing home some money. Similarly, a young attorney in the private sector who had been focusing on honing their skills took on the financial responsibilities for their family, giving up their wages to keep their loved ones home. The federal raids caused disruption and harm in every aspect of our lives. We saw severe revenue losses ranging from 20 to 50% for some Latino-owned businesses. In the Cermak corridor in Marshall Square, we lost 4 businesses due to this disruption. Once open and welcoming businesses now keep their door locked and require customers to buzz in to protect their patrons. To limit their exposure, a small business owner decided to sleep in their own business rather to venture outside and go home. The impact of immigration enforcement affected neighborhood stability, reduced participation in community life, and created lasting fear throughout our neighborhoods. This harm seeps into the social psyche of a community that isn't cured overnight or forgotten when raids end. However, it is worth uplifting the Herculean effort taken on by community organizers, state legislators, nonprofits, civic and faith leaders, and private attorneys to protect the community. Their work to provide resources, creating safe spaces, and defending the rule of law is what made the difference in not causing even more devastating impacts. Community organizations like the one I work for also face a disruption, now called to respond rapidly to growing emergency needs, while also helping calm fears and connecting families to resources. And I want to end on that note, back to that day in October where families said they'd just go without food for that month instead of risking a pickup. What the team did was what any other true Chicagoan would do in that situation. They put the boxes in their cars and delivered them to the families. Because we protect and defend each other and hold the belief that our government should do the same. We ask this body to take into account the long-lasting effects of this operation, the needless harm inflicted on community, and call for true accountability. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Garza and former Chair Castro. Thank you for convening this hearing. My name is Amina Bihumi. I'm the Executive Director of the Muslim Civic Coalition. We're a statewide nonpartisan organization dedicated to advancing racial, economic, and educational equity, and we empower Illinois diverse communities to fully participate in our democracy through policy advocacy, coalition building, voter education, and community-driven research. Illinois is home to the largest per capita Muslim population in the nation. According to the Illinois Muslim Report, we are the Muslim community in Illinois is the most racially and ethnically diverse in the country. No single race or ethnicity forms a majority. We include Black, Asian, Arab, White, Latino, African, South Asian, and many other backgrounds. And so when we talk about discrimination, often, especially with regards to immigration, oftentimes it's compounded. Roughly half of Illinois Muslims are immigrants or come from immigrant families. Half of our community reports facing discrimination because of our faith, and immigration enforcement and policing tactics are too often at the heart of that discrimination. Operations Midway Blitz and the relentless federal immigration enforcement sweeping across Chicago have created a devastation in our communities, and a disruption that reaches far beyond those detained. This indiscriminate, coordinated, and systemic effort has instilled a climate of terror, of fear amongst immigrant families and communities. And I'll describe a little bit more about how that looks like, including families from Somalia, Palestine, Pakistan, Iran, Yemen, Syria, Sudan, and beyond. And so this fear paralyzes daily life. What it looks like is a Somali mother recently told us that she no longer lets her children play outside after school. A Palestinian father, while driving his daughter to school, constantly checking his rear view mirror because oftentimes during what might seem like a regular traffic stop is when ICE is detaining folks. Families hesitate to attend mosques, seek medical care, or even claim benefits in the citizens that their citizen children direly need. DACA recipients and longtime immigrant families are afraid to tell their own stories publicly, fearing government retaliation, a hovering anxiety that settles over our communities. And this is not new. There are years of documented cases showing federal agencies using immigration tools to target and intimidate Muslim communities. What it looks like is travelers are placed on watch lists and subjugated to prolonged border delays with threats of travel restrictions, the use to coerce them to become FBI informants. Lawful permanent residents have been pressured by CBP officials to sign the I-407 and voluntarily abandon their green cards. Muslim travelers routinely face invasive secondary screening filled with unconstitutional questions about their religious practices, the mosques they attend, their private social media posts, political views, especially advocacy for Palestine. And I'll say that I have been a recipient of these kinds of questions while traveling, and I am a US citizen. Particularly chilling is how this enforcement is weaponized to silence dissent and punish advocacy, particularly now for Palestinian human rights. I'm going to give the example of Salah Sarsour, who's a most recent example, but of many, who's a leader and longtime Palestinian American father, grandfather, the president of the Islamic Society of Milwaukee, was surrounded by more than 10 ICE agents simply while driving. A respected community pillar who has lived lawfully in this country for over 3 decades. He was ripped from his family into ICE detention. And the government claims that he broke the law, yet we know these justifications are too often trumped up excuses used to legitimize violence and illegally detain fathers, mothers, children, and community members. We have also witnessed ICE targeting for
activists on campuses. And the famous examples that we know of are Mahmoud Khalil and Rumaisa, both of which stood up for human rights. And so these are menacing messages to every activist that if you speak truth about human rights, you risk being disappeared by your own government. And so this is not law enforcement, this is political retaliation. Here in Illinois, we cannot claim moral high ground. While an anti-BDS law passed in 2015, still on the books despite repeal efforts, remains in force. This law bars public pension funds from divesting from companies complicit in the occupation, apartheid, costing our pension systems $149 million in lost returns. It sends a clear message that certain voices, often immigrant voices, and certain forms of peaceful advocacy are actually not allowed. And so this normalizes the punishment of dissent and mirrors the chilling effect that we see at the federal government, including within the immigration system. Even in the face of this repression, multi-faith, multi-ethnic, multiracial groups and coalition continue to stand united. Delivering Know Your Rights training, rapid responding on signal, using whistles, sanctuary supports, opening up their homes, their community centers, feeding those who need to be fed, providing mutual aid. As we work to protect immigrants today and defend free speech and the right to dissent, we are protecting the entirety of our democracy. ICE targeting operations continue in our neighborhoods, at courthouses and in workplaces, and they're occurring downstate too as well. We just visited communities where families continue to tell us that they remain isolated and unsure where they can seek help. Trust in public institutions has been shattered. When our schools, hospitals, and houses of worship no longer feel safe, our democracy itself is under attack. And so we'll continue to do this work to fight for dignity and for a voice. And we are grateful and hope that the recommendations to protect families and faith communities and our constitutional rights is front and center. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Jennifer Aguilar, and I'm the Executive Director of the Little Village Chamber of Commerce. I was born and raised in Little Village, and I still live there today. The Little Village Chamber of Commerce has represented local businesses and the bilingual business community since 1989. We work closely with the small businesses and workers, families, and residents who make Little Village the economic powerhouse that it is. Last fall, our community experienced a level of fear and disruption that fundamentally changed the daily life in Little Village. Residents woke up to helicopters overhead. Businesses monitored enforcement activity in real time. Families stopped going out. Community organizations mobilized rapid response efforts while local businesses struggled to remain open and reassure employees and consumers. Little Village is home to one of the most important commercial corridors in Chicago. Along 26th Street, there are more than 1,000 businesses, and for years, the corridor has been recognized as the second Magnificent Mile, second only to Michigan Avenue, in the economic activity in the city of Chicago. 26th Street generates more than $900 million in annual sales revenue. But 26th Street is more than a commercial corridor. It is a cultural destination, a gathering place, and the heart of a community that generations of families have helped build. Families travel to 26th Street from across the Midwest and from other states to shop, celebrate, and eat, and to experience Mexican culture and community. That tourism is a major part of what sustains our small businesses. Before the large-scale raids even began, fear was already spreading through the community after ICE agents and the National Guard arrived in Chicago. Rumors spread daily, families were scared, businesses were on edge, and people did not know what was coming next. The fear became so intense that in late August and early September, Mexican Independence Day celebrations across the city were being canceled. And for the first time in the 54-year history of the Little Village Mexican Independence Day Parade, there were serious discussions about whether it was safe to move forward. That parade is more than an event. It is a tradition that generations of families have grown up with. It represents culture, pride, and community. Ultimately, the community chose to move forward because people wanted to show unity and resilience. For many, simply showing up became an act of resistance. Even so, attendance was visibly down. The parade typically draws about 500,000 people, and last year's turnout was roughly half of what we normally see. As Operation Midway Blitz intensified, the effects on the business community became immediate and severe. Local business owners reported losing between 40 and 70% of their revenue compared to the same period the year before. Businesses reduced hours, they cut staff, and they struggled to survive. At the same time, the scenes unfolding in Little Village were being broadcast across the country. Images of raids, tactical gear, tear gas, and chaos became associated with the neighborhood nationally. Visitors stopped coming. Families who would normally travel from neighboring states to spend weekends shopping along 26th Street stayed away. A corridor normally associated with culture, celebration, and family suddenly became associated with fear and violence. One moment that captures the atmosphere many residents experience on a consistent basis happened on November 8th. That morning, elderly residents were out running errands, families were shopping, and people were going about their normal Saturday, when federal immigration agents arrived at 26th Street and Pulaski. Agents threw tear gas and brandished guns in the middle of the commercial corridor. People ran in fear while bystanders rushed to get elderly residents and families to safety inside nearby businesses. After the agents left, the neighborhood felt completely different. The streets were empty, businesses were empty, the energy of Little Village was gone. It stayed that way for a long time afterward. And the reality is that many businesses still have not recovered. About 2 months ago, the Chamber conducted outreach to hear directly from business owners about how they were doing months after Operation Midway Blitz. Even though ICE activity has decreased, business owners consistently told us that things have not returned to normal for them. Sales remain low, foot traffic has improved slowly, but not anywhere near the levels businesses depended on before last fall. Many business owners are now so far behind on rent, utility, vendor payments, and other bills that they do not believe they will be able to hold on much longer. One business owner shared that she had to pawn her own jewelry just to pay rent after operating in Little Village for more than 10 years. What we continue to hear from business owners is exhaustion, uncertainty, and fear about the future. And unlike during COVID-19, many business owners feel there has been little recognition of economic damage caused by these operations and no meaningful relief available to help stabilize them. The businesses being hit the hardest are Latino-owned small businesses that spend decades building the economic strength of this corridor and this community. When workers lose hours, families lose income. When families are afraid to leave home, businesses lose customers. Fear became economic instability, and economic instability became long-term harm to an entire neighborhood. Little Village is resilient, but resilience should not be mistaken for the absence of harm. The stress, uncertainty, and economic damage from last fall are still affecting the community today. Families, workers, and business owners deserve to live and work without fear disrupting every part of daily life. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our speakers. We'll follow up with you. We're unable to ask questions right now, but I have many. But we're going to go ahead and transition to the next panel once they've been seated. So appreciate you again.
this panel, the fourth person that was out is going to be involved.
I got it.
Yeah,
I will.
he's gonna.
We're gonna go in this order.
You just have to move both of them. So you have to speak into. You're gonna have to speak into both of them.
Shelly, are you starting
You
or
ready?
am I starting? Am I starting or is she?
You're starting.
Okay, that's fine. And do I need to move the mic
We'll just,
over or
I'll
I
go
leave
in
it where it
order
is?
of the way you're sitting, so I'll go this way. So you'll start.
You have
So-
to speak into both.
No, both mics have to be used
Want them
simultaneously.
together and then I have to lean over this way?
You can move them over to
Fine.
this.
I'll move over for you. Okay, of course, ready?
All right, we're gonna get started. If everyone could take your seats, please. This is a continuation of panel 3A. This is panel 3B regarding the community-wide disruptions. We're going to have a focus on stories involving workforce disruptions, business losses, economic impacts because of the federal enforcement action on school activity and community life. These testimonies are going to help us provide a clearer picture of the policies and the enforcement practices and how they've affected and continue to impact all aspects of the community at large. Panelists will have 6 minutes each. You have 2 microphones in front of you. You need to speak loudly into both because they're for different purposes. And we will be very tight on time, so we'll ask you to wrap up when you see your time almost running out. I'll introduce the panelists now. Rochelle Garza with the ACLU of Illinois, Karina Ayala Bermejo with Instituto del Progreso Latino, Shelly Ruzica with Arise Chicago, and then we will have a testimony from Jane Doe, a parent mentor. But in order to protect their identity, that person will testify from behind that protected panel right there. So while you will hear them, you won't see them. So with that, I will ask Ms. Garcia to begin her testimony.
Good afternoon.
You're good.
You're good.
We can hear you.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Garcia. I'm the Deputy Legal Director of the Roger Baldwin Foundation and the ACLU of Illinois. We are a nonpartisan nonprofit organization that has been fighting for the civil rights and liberties of people in Illinois, including immigrants, for over 100 years. Today, I will discuss 2 ACLU of Illinois cases, which show how the federal government has illegally arrested thousands of people in Illinois, then detained them in horrible conditions at the Broadview ICE Processing Center, only to be deported or removed from the country, resulting in not only constitutional violations, separations of families, but generational trauma for our Latino communities and other immigrant communities. Let's talk about the thousands of people illegally arrested before and after and during Operation Midway Blitz. We have a case called Castañón versus the Department of Homeland Security. In 2018, we actually filed this case with National Immigrant Justice Center, the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, and Organized Communities Against Deportation. We sued DHS and ICE for conducting traffic stops and arresting without warrants about 100 people who appeared Latino. We entered into a federal consent decree, which requires DHS to follow the Fourth Amendment and federal immigration law. The decree requires that if DHS arrests someone in Illinois and 4 other Midwest states without a warrant and probable cause that the person is a flight risk, that they can be released from detention. From 2022 to 2024, we did not receive notice of any warrantless arrests by immigration authorities. But immediately on January 20th, 2025, ICE and then later CBP began violating the decree, arresting people without warrants based on how they looked, if they were in Latino communities, and where they worked, such as Mexican restaurants or construction sites. By March, we had filed a motion to enforce, and Operation Midway Blitz began in September. From June 11th to October 7th, the Department of Homeland Security stated in court filings that there were 1,852 arrests in the Northern District of Illinois that were likely warrantless. With CPB, the number rose to over 3,000. DHS court filings reflected that most people arrested for violating civil immigration law did not have a criminal history or pose a risk for the community's safety. Our clients are breadwinners, day laborers, delivery drivers, small business owners, moms and dads with various immigration status, from undocumented people who've lived here 30 years without an issue, to asylum seekers, to people with work authorization, and people adjusting their status. Many have U.S. citizens and family members. In contrast, our clients' accounts and bystander video reflect that many of these arrests were violent, indeed criminal. Masked men blocked cars on street as people were returning from work or dropping off kids at school. They broke windows, pulled people out of cars, and even used Black Hawk helicopters to raid a building without warrants in the middle of the night. The terror did not stop there. DHS sent most of the people to the Broadview ICE holding facility, a place where people are supposed to stay briefly for processing before being released or detained. But in June, DHS changed the policy and now required anyone who entered the country without inspection by immigration to be held mandatorily, rather than released on bond. That increase in arrests and this policy led to extreme overcrowding at Broadview. People were subjected to inhumane and unconstitutional conditions. No food, no water, no medical care, no access to legal counsel. This was a place where people disappeared. Family members knew their family member was arrested and did not know how to find them or contact them at Broadview. By DHS's own records, by October 22nd, 2025, of the 1,852 people arrested from ICE from June to October, less than half remained in the country. 750. The reason why the other people left is that they were subjected to these inhumane conditions, and many gave up and left. Since January 2025, we have filed 12 motions to enforce our consent decree. We've been able to get hundreds of people released and remove the conditions of release for hundreds of more. But by DHS's own records, it should have been thousands of people. I'd like to briefly talk about our case involving Broadview ICE Processing Center, Moreno Gonzalez versus Mullins. With MacArthur Justice Center and Eimer Stahl, on October 30th, we filed this class action on behalf of Pablo Moreno Gonzalez, a day laborer, father of U.S. children, and a resident of Chicago for 30 years, and Felipe Zamacona, a delivery driver with U.S. citizen family members who's also lived in Chicago for 30 years, who were detained at Broadview. Our complaint included 40 declarations from immigrants who had been at Broadview, as well as congressional representatives Danny Davis, Chuy Garcia, and Delia Ramirez, who were blocked from accessing the facility. We allege the conditions were so awful they violated the Fifth Amendment rights to due process and basic needs like food and water. At a full evidentiary hearing for a temporary restraining order, the Judge Gettleman described Broadview as a concentration camp. The evidence showed in rooms designed to hold 30 people that there were more than 100 people shoulder to shoulder for days on end. People were sleeping on concrete floors next to overflowing toilets, no soap, water. Broadview was a place that people disappeared. In November, the court entered a temporary restraining order requiring DHS to fix the inhumane and unconstitutional conditions. And we have seen a decrease in the number of people detained at Broadview and a mild improvement in the conditions. We are still concerned with the access to medical care and translation of documents and language access, because that is how often our clients are being coerced to leave. By agreement, DHS has agreed to extend the TRO while we proceed toward trial or settlement. We continue to visit each week and talk to our clients who raise up issues that we bring to the court's attention. These two cases show that DHS arrested thousands of people without warrants, subjected them to horrible conditions at Broadview, denied access to counsel and indeed their own family members, and many hundreds of people left voluntarily or were deported, people that never should have been arrested in the first place and had a right to be released on our decree. They separated hundreds of families with U.S. citizen family members, resulting in trauma to our own Latino community and to immigrant communities throughout Illinois. Thank you.
My name is Karina Ayala Bermejo, and I serve as the president and CEO of Instituto del Progreso Latino, a community-based organization whose mission it is to ensure that all immigrants reach their full potential, and we do that through education, training, workforce development, legal services, and then some. Part of the nearly 5 decades of Instituto's mission has been directly alongside immigrant families as they pursue opportunity, stability, and economic mobility. Our work includes the adult education, English language classes, citizenship preparation, legal, career pathways, youth development, and wraparound services that strengthen the entire family. We are the largest submitter of citizenship applications in the state of Illinois, so when our citizenship program was attacked, canceled illegally, we knew it was intentional. At Instituto, we often say, register the student, but enroll the whole family. We understand that when one person walks through the door, they are connected to children, to spouses, to grandparents, and entire support systems whose well-being is interconnected. Because of that reality, ICE enforcement activity does not impact one individual. It created disruption across the entire family system, our entire community, affecting children's sense of safety, parents' ability to work, students' attendance, mental health, transportation, childcare, and economic stability. Since Operation Midway Blitz and the increase on ongoing ICE activity, Instituto had growing fears and anxiety from students, visibly from parents, adult learners, workers, and newly arrived families across our programs. Students missed classes, attendance dropped, families hesitated to go to work, to travel to job sites, and parents expressed fear about routine activities like taking children to school, attending medical appointments, or participating in community programs. We, Instituto, ensured that the safest place to be is within our doors. The safest place for students to be is at school. But adult learners who were actively pursuing English classes, workforce credentials, citizenship preparation, and now are really in uncertain times. How is it going to be safe to continue to participate in public life and educational settings with what may be luring down the street? Many of our families are from mixed status households where U.S. citizen children, lawful, permanent residents, undocumented family members, all living together. Fear experienced by one quickly spread throughout the entire household. We had numerous examples of our 250 employees at Instituto that had such fear that they too were calling off from coming to work. The reality is so deeply personal for many of our staff, for many of the employees themselves. Numerous required medical attention from panic attacks and others every time our signal alerts went off. Many times the Instituto had to go on soft and hard lockdowns because of that reality. As an organization rooted in the community, our staff did and simply observe the events from a distance. They're living through them daily, uncertain, trauma-affecting incidents every day. We recently experienced the devastating impact of these enforcement actions firsthand when our very own Diego, who had just recently graduated, was taken from his family in front of his house on his way to work without a warrant. He was taken immediately to the detention center where we tried to reach him. And as an attorney, I should have been allowed to, but was prevented to. Ultimately sent to Kentucky and eventually deported to Mexico. He should have been released. There was no warrant. He had no criminal background. He was an A student and a stellar soccer player. This individual had been doing exactly what our systems encourage immigrants to do, pursuing an education, building skills, working towards economic opportunity and stability. Families who have spent years building and stabilizing, learning English, pursuing careers, becoming citizens, opening up businesses, purchasing homes, supporting their children's education are being punished and pushed into fear. We are deeply concerned about the long-term impact this climate has had on the educational attainment, workforce participation, mental health, and family cohesion. Immigrant families are not withdrawing because they lack commitment to education and opportunity. They're retreating because of fear has become part of their daily life. whether it's transportation or being part of community life, our community at large is suffering. Instituto remains committed to ensuring families have access to accurate information, trusted support systems, legal services, educational opportunities, and most importantly, treating them with dignity and humanity. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. My name is Shelly Rizika, here today representing Arise Chicago. For the past 35 years, Arise Chicago has organized the collective power of working class immigrants in partnership with faith communities to uplift all workers. Arise members are immigrant workers who live and work across the city in nearly every ward. They work across industries, restaurants, hospitality, domestic workers cleaning homes, caring for children and elders, drivers, food production, and manufacturing. Our members represent the workers that run Chicago. No one eats, builds, or gets around without their labor. They were also on the front lines of the state-sponsored terror campaign named Midway Blitz. Ever since the 2024 election, Arise began preparing, creating materials, and training thousands of workers in person and virtually. We noticed a difference between new workers in our doors and trained members. Preparedness did not eliminate all fear, but it gave workers a feeling of more control over their lives by having a plan, being connected to an organization, and knowing they were not alone. We were proudly part of efforts by dozens of organizations that led Tom Homan to complain that Chicago was too educated on our rights. Our members have expressed a range of responses to the election and following terror campaign, from being fearful to even leave the house to go to work to earn money for their families, to direct defiance with one member saying, "I've done nothing wrong. Why should I be afraid?" To the most common response of being very worried about ICE, yet having no choice but to go to work to support their families. Since Midway Blitz, we've had a member kidnapped outside his workplace, a member assaulted by ICE during the immigration action and hospitalized, relatives of at least 2 members abducted, and one of our own organizers detained outside of Broadview. These clearly racist attacks targeting not only but primarily Black and brown immigrants also serve other purposes outside of a general instilling of fear. First, it's an attempt to normalize a military presence in American cities to suppress the vote ahead of the midterm elections. Attacks on immigrants are an attack on democracy. Also an attempt to weaken the one main organized balance to corporate power, organized workers, primarily unions. Attacks on immigrants are an attack on worker power and a boon to corporate power. I want to emphasize this. The federal government's attack on immigrants are a direct attack on worker rights. This is dangerous for the lives and livelihoods of immigrant workers, all workers, for good employers, and the overall economy that relies on immigrant labor. This administration has emboldened bad employers to take advantage of worker fear, whether that's through discriminatory harassment or verbal abuse, not paying for all hours worked, or dangerous conditions. I'm going to share 2 examples from our members. First, imagine working indoors, but with no heat in sub-zero temperatures during a Chicago winter. Now imagine the level of terror you have to feel to not do anything about that. In the winter of 2025, after the inauguration, the White House's threats and the presence of ICE and CBP in Chicago spread fear throughout workplaces, and bosses knew it. At one site where Rise had previously organized workers, the company did not turn on the heat. Workers only shared this with Arise months later. This is the chilling effect. This is what ICE terror can do to workers' willingness to speak up. I really want to stress that these were workers who know their rights, workers who have organized and fought their bosses to end other abusive practices and even win wage increases. If these workers could be so paralyzed to not confront their boss, it's hard to imagine the level of abuse under other employers, other bad employers in this climate. I'll repeat, an attack on immigrants is a danger to all workers' rights, worker health, and safety. A second example. Imagine you or your child being sick and feeling that you have to choose between earning the paycheck to take care of your family or going into work, and between that and taking care of your health. Before the election and before coming to Arise, there were workers at a production site who were punished for taking paid sick time, a violation of our local Chicago Earned Sick Time Ordinance. They'd be taken off the schedule for 1 to several days in retaliation for using their time. But with the RISE's support, they organized and ended this illegal practice. But now, under ICE terror, workers report that while the employer no longer punishes them for using their sick time, management simply does not approve their time off. This is a new form of controlling and abusing their workers. Emboldened employers are taking advantage of ICE-instilled fear to violate labor laws. Now, it's always scary to confront your boss. There's always a fear of losing your job and your ability to provide for your family. But now there's an intense added fear of kidnapping, physical injury, or even death at the hands of an out-of-control authoritarian military force based on the color of your skin, your accent, or your job. As we say in the worker rights movement, an injury to one is an injury to all. Now, that's not just a nice sentiment of solidarity, it's real. Just like raising the minimum wage lifts all workers' wages, diminishing the rights of any workers hurts all workers. At the same time, I want to be very clear that workers continue to come to RISE Chicago to learn their rights and improve their working conditions. Workers still want and deserve good jobs with dignified treatment. We will continue organizing in workplaces. While the federal government has failed and is indeed attacking workers, with our partners, we are organizing to actually win gains for workers in Illinois. We recently traveled with dozens of our members to Springfield to advocate for paid family medical leave and protections from extreme temperatures at work. Arise Chicago and our members are the continuation of the proud legacy of the fight for the 8-hour day and the birth of the American labor movement. We will continue to be the city of big shoulders, the city that works, and now the city at the forefront of protecting our democratic rights on the job and in this country. Thank you.
We will now hear from Jane Doe, a parent mentor who will testify confidentially behind the screen. You may proceed. Just putting the mic together for them.
Hi, I'm mother of 3 boys, 119, 117, and 112. I'm resident of Little Village, one of the neighborhoods attacked by Midway Blaze really hard. Thank you for this opportunity for share my history, but the history of the other families too, in the same way, in the same neighborhood. And I want to say, after finish this part, I would like to share in Spanish because my first language is Spanish, and I want to share with you every detail about the history and how it's important for me, for my community, and for my sons, how you can help to change the future for other people. Don't be in the same situation like us. He sido residente de esa comunidad por muchísimos años y voluntaria en diferentes organizaciones y las escuelas de mis hijos.
I have been a resident in that community for a long time, and I also have been a volunteer in different organizations and the school of my children.
Cuando estos operativos empezaron, nuestra comunidad empezó a cambiar.
When these operations started, our community started changing.
Empezamos a vivir bajo el miedo de hablar nuestro idioma, de lucir en el color.
We were living in fear. We didn't want to show our colors and speak our language.
Empezamos a vivir otra vez bajo las sombras de no querer salir por miedo a faltarle a nuestros hijos.
And we started living again in the shadows because we were afraid to go outside because we didn't want to not be with our children.
Nuestra comunidad empezó a ser liderada por nuestros propios hijos protegiendo a sus padres.
And our community, our own children started being the leaders, protecting their own parents.
Empezaron a ser ellos quienes iban a la tienda para protegernos de no volver a casa.
And they were the ones that started going to the store so they could protect us from not coming back home.
En mi propia familia, mi esposo salió a trabajar.
In my own family, my husband went out to work.
Y durante una persecución que los agentes tenían, encontraron signos de el trabajo de construcción y se regresaron.
And then during a raid that the agents were doing, they found some signs of persecution, so they went back.
Mi esposo fue detenido por ICE en diciembre 16 y no lo volvimos a ver.
My husband was detained by ICE on the 16th of December, and we never saw him again.
Él solo estaba buscando trabajo y alimento para su familia.
He was only looking for work and food for his family.
Era un hombre que no tenía ningún récord criminal y era un gran padre para mis hijos.
He was a person that did not have a criminal record, and he was a great father to my children.
A través de esa situación entendimos que había muchos procedimientos que se habían roto.
And due to this situation, we understood that there were a lot of processes that were broken.
Él jamás recibió una orden para ser detenido, no tenía una forma I-213.
He never got an order to be detained, and he didn't have an I-213 form.
Él tuvo que firmar su salida voluntaria porque no teníamos otra opción.
He had to sign his own voluntary departure because we did not have another option.
Y ahora nosotros quedamos sin el sustento de nuestra familia.
And now we are without the support for our family.
Y quedamos en un limbo porque yo no tenía trabajo y empezar desde cero porque no teníamos no tenía a mi esposo y mis hijos no tenían a su figura paterna.
And we were in limbo because I did not have work, and we had to start from the very beginning because I did not have a husband and my kids did not have a father.
Me gustaría que entendieran que nuestras familias tienen tristeza, coraje, miedo.
I would like you to understand that our families are sad, they're angry, they are afraid.
Pero aún tenemos voz para querer seguir luchando porque sean procesos justos.
We still have a voice because we want to keep on fighting so there's a fair process.
Que este país que se ha basado en una comunidad inmigrante siga las leyes que se han hecho y que se han escrito.
That this country that is based on an immigration community keep on writing the laws and following the laws that have been prescribed.
Y no solo para las personas por su color, su voz y su raza,
And not only for the people because of their color, their voice, or their race,
sino para jóvenes como mis hijos que nacieron en este país.
but also for the youth like my children that were born in this country.
Y que ahora viven teniendo ansiedad, depresión,
And that now they live having anxiety and depression.
que no es justo que un niño de 7 años pierda de vista a su mamá 30 segundos
That it's not fair that a kid that is 7 years old lost sight of his mother for 30 seconds
y tenga un ataque de miedo pidiendo ayuda, que lo ayuden a buscar a su mamá.
and that has an attack of panic, asking for help, to get help to help him find his mother.
Quiero que consideren que hoy con miedo, pero también con la certeza, les pido que sigamos luchando porque sigan siendo procesos justos, que se sigan las leyes.
And then I want to let you know that today, even with fear, I am certain that we have to continue this fight so we have due process.
Y que sean liberadas las personas que solo han cometido el delito de buscar un futuro mejor.
And that the people are set free because their only crime was to look for a better future.
Les pido por favor que consideren el daño que han hecho durante estos operativos.
Please, I want you to consider the damage that has been caused for all these raids,
Legalmente, económicamente, pero también en la salud mental de muchas generaciones.
legally, financially, but also of the mental health of a lot of generations.
Que nos ayuden a seguir peleando y tener una voz que es justa, que no tengamos que seguirnos escondiendo,
That to help us keep on fighting with a voice that is fair, that we don't have to be hiding.
independientemente de nuestra situación legal,
No matter what our legal situation is,
nuestro color y nuestro idioma.
our color and our language,
Porque todos los seres humanos nacimos libres.
because all the human beings, we were all born free.
Y merecemos la oportunidad de seguir luchando por una mejor vida.
And we deserve the opportunity to keep on fighting for a better life.
Gracias por esta oportunidad, por documentar todo esto, que no solo cambió la vida de mi familia, sino de una comunidad entera.
Thank you for this opportunity and also for documenting all this because it not only changed the life of my family, but also the community.
Gracias, señora, por su testimonio y le prometo que nosotros vamos a estar a su lado en esta lucha para usted y para todas las familias como la suya que siguen sufriendo y que van a sufrir por lo que les han pasado. Nosotros aquí como la presidenta de la Comisión de Civiles Derechos de los Estados Unidos y yo como activista y todos que están aquí en este cuarto con nosotros, estamos con usted. Que Dios la bendiga. That's what it's about. That's the most powerful testimony that we can share to anyone who wonders what this is really about. That's about the pain and the suffering that's being inflicted on families that are law-abiding, hardworking. They are the truest Americans, not the people that are rounding them up, not the people that are taking them to prison, not the people that are taking them out of this country and away from their families. These are the real stories that we have to remember as we continue the fight and as we continue to document these atrocities, because that's what they are. Atrocities that are being committed by our own government against our own people. Madam Chair, I don't know if you'd like to say anything. Thank you. So thank you, panelists. Thank you all. Your testimony was very powerful as well. We appreciate your participation today. We're now going to transition to panel 4A. So we'll ask the other panelists to begin to come to the podium.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm back by on
provide you with some assistance. Obviously, we've just experienced some very powerful testimony, and we're going to continue to experience powerful testimony for the balance of the day. This portion of the hearing centers on the voices of individuals and families who have experienced the effects of immigration enforcement in Chicago. These testimonies are critical to capture, and we appreciate that you're all being here today to share these experiences with us. So I will introduce the panelists. A reminder again, we have 6 minutes each. Speak into both microphones as they're for two different purposes. Today we have Marcela Rodriguez of Enlace Chicago, Cristina Ramirez Radecki of an impacted individual, Marcos Carvajal from Carnitas Urupan, who provided this wonderful lunch for us today. Thank you. Dr. Angela Cedeno, who is from the Kedzie Center. And we will also once again hear from an anonymous community member, a John Doe, who will also speak at the end behind this panel. So with that, Ms. Rodriguez, please proceed.
Michael first. Okay.
Yes. Maybe scooch over your chair a little bit. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here and speak and share the experience that both Enlace Chicago and the Little Village community encountered during Operation Midway Blitz. As Marty said, my name is Marcela Rodriguez. I am the executive director of Enlace Chicago, and I'm also the co-chair of the Illinois Latino Agenda. Enlace serves the Little Village community, which is one of the largest Latino communities, not just in the city, but I believe in the Midwest. We work alongside families, organizations, elected officials, focused on education, mental health, community health, immigration, and safety. And we also convene partners to collectively address the needs of the community. As co-chair of the Illinois Latino Agenda, I work alongside many other amazing leaders in uniting voices for advocacy, culture, and change. And we work collectively with a bold commitment to advocate for the needs of the Latino community and for equal representation and equitable investment. What our Little Village families experienced during Operation Midway Blitz was severe disruption, unimaginable fear, uncertainty, and incredible levels of anxiety. What I share today is grounded in what we heard directly from our families, from our frontline staff, and from what we witnessed firsthand. I want to give you all a visual of the things that we saw on a daily basis, and strange and unimaginable things became a norm. One morning, I had to be at the office early. It must have been around 6:30 a.m. It was still dark. And I saw a car parked with both the passenger side door and the driver's side door wide open. I waited outside before entering the office to see, I imagine that someone had run back into their home, they forgot something. But I stood out there for 25 minutes and nobody ever came. That became a normal thing in our community. Cars that were there, abandoned, with nobody in sight. Our community, which if any of you have ever come to what we call 26th Street, is packed with traffic, cars, it's impossible to find parking, and restaurants and businesses are always full. Our restaurants were empty. Our streets were a ghost town. And with the sounds of whistles on a daily basis, helicopters directly above our heads, crowds gathering, pushing ICE back and CBP, it really felt, and seeing soldiers, people that look like soldiers with semi-automatic weapons and what looked like grenades, which were the gas bombs. It looked like a ghost, it looked like a battle zone. It looked like something, the images you see in a movie during war. We had cars speeding through our streets, near schools. We saw many car accidents created by ICE and CBP speeding through our streets. And our community did not go to work. Our students did not go to school. Our legal clinic had appointments that were canceled, even though there were individuals that had cases with hopes to achieve some sort of stability. And our community health clinic had no-shows. For the families in Little Village, immigration enforcement was not just a legal issue. It became a daily violation of their dignity, safety, and human rights. We quickly came together to think about ways, not just as Enlace, but as a collective of lots of partner organizations, elected officials, faith leaders, to come up with ways that we can support the community during these horrible times. We launched a Roots of Resilience campaign where we were able to raise dollars to hire additional staff to provide mental health supports, both for our adults, our children, and our staff. We were able to give economic assistance to both small businesses and families that could not keep up with paying their rent, buying food, or getting the medications that they very much needed. It really was an unimaginable situation. And yet, what this unfortunate series of events created was a heightened level of unity, caring for each other, standing shoulder to shoulder, being attacked, in efforts of supporting our neighbors. I genuinely believe that as a community and as people, we've been through a lot. The way we overcame the challenges of COVID, the challenges of other situations and crises, we will again recover. We just need some time, and we need to support each other. I believe with all my heart that this administration may have chipped away at our peace, but I think they need to know that they did not come anywhere close to touching our spirit and who we are.
Good afternoon. My name is Christina Radecki Ramirez, and I'm a United States citizen. On May of 2025, my husband and I were on our way to do a job in Detroit, Michigan, And because of one small wrong turn, my husband and I were stopped at the Windsor Border Patrol, and we were asked to get out of our car, and we went in to show our documents. Unfortunately, because they didn't believe us, and the documents that my husband showed, he showed his social security card, his ID, and his work permit. They detained both of us. They basically had lack of jurisdiction of us, so they detained my husband for more than 5 months, and I was detained for 3 days, being a U.S. citizen, without being able to take a shower. I wasn't able to call my family. I wasn't able to speak to my children, whom I love very much. I was not able to be in contact with anybody. And then my husband was told to us that they were gonna let him go. And unfortunately, they took him for over 4.5 months. They kept him in a detention center, and they didn't give him proper food. He was sleeping on a steel bench. They basically forced him to self-deport himself, which he now is in Zacatecas, Mexico. He's been there already since August. Yeah, I would say August of last year. He has basically, he was granted a U visa, and how they have my husband there is just totally unjust. My husband should be allowed to come back to the United States, where he has a business with myself, and we should be able to live our lives properly without having to feel that we had our rights torn away from us and to have separation of families. Basically, what ICE has done to us is, and the Border Patrol, is that they're targeting immigrants and Latino families without having the proper documentation. They're very aggressive to people. Me, myself, being a U.S. citizen, they totally took away my rights as a human being and a U.S. citizen. They separated us and forced us to have it just tore us to pieces of everything. My husband now being in Zacatecas, Mexico, I want to bring him back, and I'm going to do whatever I can to bring him back the right way. And I will fight till the end for him and do what is right. I would say that majority of the Latino people, they're scared, and they shouldn't be. They're human beings, and they're wonderful people. And I'm proud to be married to a Mexican man. I'm very proud. And I just want everybody to know that I have wonderful family. I come from a family of educators. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I have a family of education, and I don't think it's right what this world has done to the humane of all the Latino people. And I'm here to stand up for their rights and to protect what's right and to bring my husband home.
Thank you, Ms. Rebecca Ramirez. Mr. Carvajal?
Good afternoon. My name is Marcos Carvajal. I'm the second generation owner of Carnitas Uruapan, a Mexican family-owned restaurant that has called Chicago home for 51 years. My father opened our first location in Pilsen in 1975 after immigrating here from Mexico in the late 1960s. He built a business from nothing with hard work, good food, and a deep belief that putting down roots in a community could build something lasting. That belief has held true for over half a century now. We grew to a second location in Gage Park and eventually to our third and flagship location on 26th Street in Little Village, a landmark building that took us years to renovate and that we now proudly call home. In 51 years, we've seen our communities go through a great deal. We've watched neighborhoods change, we've weathered economic downturns, and we've always come back stronger. But nothing has shaken this business to its core the way that Operation Midway Blitz did. The last moment I can point to where things still felt normal was the first Sunday in September. We were working one of our largest events of the year, a soccer match at SeatGeek Stadium for Chivas de Guadalajara versus León. Stadium full of Latinos, families, people celebrating together. What we didn't know was that at that very same moment, a man named Leodegario Martinez Barradas was being arrested by federal agents in Archer Heights. He was a flower vendor, no criminal record. His family was back home in Veracruz, Mexico. Within days, he was deported. He later wrote, ICE is not deporting people with a criminal background. They're deporting those that dedicate their time to work. The Chicago Tribune reported that he's believed to be the first person detained and deported in Chicago under the title of Operation Midway Blitz. That Sunday kicked off everything that followed. Things changed immediately. Customers called to ask if we could run food out to their car for fear of stopping. Families who came every Sunday for carnitas stopped coming. Everyone, including myself, was monitoring social media around the clock to warn staff and neighbors during their commutes of ICE activity. This was not living freely in community. This was a community living in fear. This fear did not discriminate by immigration status. If you were Latino, you were a target for being stopped and harassed. That made me feel for the very first time in my life like a second-class citizen. Other parts of this city did not face this. Other ethnicities did not face this. It's a blatant violation of our civil rights, and it continues every single day. The economic consequences were real and measurable to us. Having 3 restaurants across 3 different neighborhoods gave me a unique vantage point. At the peak of the operation, our little village location saw a 40% drop in revenue and became unprofitable. 40%. Our Gage Park location dropped 25%. Our original Pilsen location, which has been there for 50 years, dropped 20%. Across 3 different neighborhoods, the numbers told the same story. When people are afraid, they stay home. The restaurant industry operates on thin margins in the best of times. There's very little room for error in this business, and drops of this magnitude sustained over weeks and months are not something most restaurants can absorb. Many of us dipped into our personal savings just to keep the lights on and keep our employees paid and employed. And that's if you were lucky to stay open at all. Savings that represented years of hard work, years of sacrifice, being drawn down will have real consequences for our families for years to come. And there's something I want this panel to understand clearly. You cannot market against fear. There's no promotion, no discount, no outreach strategy that brings people out of their homes when they're afraid to be in public. The damage goes far beyond the immediate loss of revenue. Without knowing what the future holds, without any uncertainty that this won't happen again, we cannot confidently push ourselves to grow our business. We can't sign leases, we can't buy additional real estate, confidently hire staff, or make investments that small businesses need to move forward and grow. The enforcement didn't just cost us revenue, cost us our ability to plan for the future. The numbers of all of this matter, but the numbers are made of people. I think about our workers afraid to come in, not because of anything they had done, but because of the color of their skin. On any given morning, they could be stopped, profiled, harassed. Their car windows could be smashed. They could be dragged out of their vehicle in the street. That was the reality our workers lived every single day. I think about what it means to raise children in a neighborhood where you have to teach them to be afraid of federal law enforcement. Not because they're criminals, not because they've done anything wrong, but because of who they are, where their family comes from, and the color of their skin. That is a weight no family should have to carry, and America is failing us when this is happening. I'm not here to make a political argument. I'm here to tell you what I saw, what I experienced, and what the people of the neighborhoods where I operate my businesses experienced during this time. If the people who make policy decisions could stand on 26th Street, see the empty tables, the quiet streets, the fear in people's eyes, the way agents abuse their power, they would understand that enforcement carried out this way does not just affect those it targets, it affects everyone. It affects entire communities. My family built Carnitas Uruapan because we believe in setting roots in the Latino communities that we're a part of. We're not going anywhere. The people of these communities are not a threat. They're workers, parents, neighbors, business owners, and oftentimes some of the hardest working people you're ever going to meet. They deserve to live without fear. They deserve to walk to their car, take their children to school, and come to a restaurant for Sunday lunch without wondering if today's the day their family gets torn apart. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I really hope this record matters. I hope this moment is not in vain. We need real accountability and real consequences for the bad actors who made all of this possible. Actions that were not long ago completely unthinkable in this country.
Thank you, Mr. Carvajal. Dr. Cedeno?
My name is Dr. Angela Cedeño. I am a licensed clinical psychologist and CEO of Expanded Mental Health Services of Chicago, representing the 260,000 residents of Albany Park, Irving Park, North Park, Logan Square, Avondale, and Hermosa. The impact of Operation Midway Blitz has been far-reaching, affecting individuals of all ages. Daily lives have been disrupted in our homes, schools, workplaces, and health clinics. Among the outcomes are separation of families, economic hardship, children being required to assume adult responsibilities for their parents, and persons not receiving the health care they need because they're afraid to leave their homes. The tactics used by ICE and CBP have caused pervasive fear and terror that no place is safe and no one is safe, that one could be separated from their loved ones at any moment. These are concerns expressed by second graders at one of our local schools in reference to violence inflicted by ICE and CBP, a conversation I found to be astounding among 7-year-old children. Today, I lift the experiences of our children. These traumatic events have implications for long-term harm. As mental health providers, we bear witness to how the chronic fear shows up in our children, from anxiety to social withdrawal. Our teachers and caregivers have found it difficult to console and reassure the children. Overall, a majority of our clients report experiencing daily fear and exposure to use of force, as well as economic hardship and barriers to accessing resources. About 15% of our clients reported direct experiences with detention and family separation. Our youngest children, ages 0 to 6, have experienced increased separation anxiety, irritability, nightmares, clinginess, tantrums, in response to the tension they feel around them. Our school-age children, ages 7 to 12, experience anxiety, irritability, restlessness, nightmares, school refusal, social withdrawal, academic decline, and peer issues, including bullying from other students. Our children lack the ability to fully comprehend what is happening around them, and yet they are absorbing the fear and uncertainty. One 6-year-old child made online videos pleading for her father's return with promises to be good. Our teens and young adults report depression, loss of appetite, sleep disturbance, hypervigilance, hopelessness, anger, and social withdrawal. They also describe increased responsibility for their families and financial worries. Some of our teens became the primary financial provider and had to learn and navigate everything from the difference between cilantro and parsley to their siblings' educational and medical needs. They're overwhelmed and discouraged. Our adult clients and parents report fear of leaving their homes. Many report not leaving their homes for the duration of the operation. A majority of our families experienced financial hardship with rent and food, and fear of accessing food and health resources for their US-born children. Many experienced severe panic attacks related to chronic fear of family separation, state violence, and the difficulty of emergency planning for their families. Who would take their children if they were detained? Which children would stay and which would go with their parents? Many families had no one with whom they could leave their children. Consequently, they presented with severe worry and distress, hopelessness, sleep disturbance, grief, and anxiety about talking to their children about possible outcomes. Over these months, we had weekly virtual conversations regarding self-regulation in critical moments and how to prepare their children. The stress is palpable and felt by their teachers, providers, and helpers, and has called for increased services for our community providers. Our community providers have reported exhaustion, overwhelm, and burnout related to high community needs that exceed resources, racial profiling, and distress related to family emergency planning. Like our clinics, they report less in-person attendance and a reluctance to seek assistance. Our own team of clinicians report constant fear for their clients and themselves, high distress, helplessness, and depression. They note that many of their clients with trauma histories have been re-traumatized by the escalation of immigration enforcement and experience an exacerbation of their PTSD symptoms. it has been difficult to restore a sense of safety for our clients and community members. On October 3rd, tear gas was deployed at the front door of our mental health clinic. Staff and clients were exposed to tear gas as they went to work and therapy. Neighbors, including elders with asthma and youth, ran for cover. For subsequent months, we could not assure our clients that our location was safe. All of these assaults on our neighbors have exhausted our resources and strained the social fabric and threatened the wellness of our communities. The impact cannot be overstated, and we have yet to understand the implications of the chronic distress on our children, families, and communities. We have a responsibility to our communities, but especially to the children, to protect and not harm them. Operation Blitz caused relentless harm that will take years and likely generations to overcome. Thank you.
Thank you to our panelists. We do actually have time for one or two questions, Madam Chair. Dr. Cedeno, you clearly are still experiencing, and the community you're serving is experiencing, the trauma from Midway Blitz. There's still obviously activity going on. How is that exacerbating what was experienced, and what are you doing, or what is being done in the mental health community to try to prepare for what might be next?
That's a great question. I think that we're definitely not prepared, and something that we all need to be thinking about. What we've seen is less people coming in person for services or waiting until they absolutely have to. We started seeing more people virtually again. We are showing up in the places that they're already at, so showing up at schools and churches and places where they feel safe. What seems to be happening is people are reaching out in moments of panic. And when they're not, they're staying home and just taking care of themselves. It's unfortunate because I do think that we're going to see symptoms get worse. Like we're seeing people who are developing phobias about leaving home. And so it'll just get exacerbated the longer this lasts.
Go ahead.
Mr. Carvajal, could you talk to us a little bit more about the economic impact? I know you yourself have told us that your business lost, in Little Village, over 40%. Have you seen, what's the improvement, if any, that you've seen? And if you had one thing that you could recommend that be done to support the business community, particularly small businesses like yours, what would that one thing be?
It's a very slow recovery. The type of enforcement has changed, the tactics have changed, but it's still happening. Our customer base is more plugged in than ever and knows exactly when there's activity, and you can see a cooling effect in the neighborhoods where it's happening. Even though it appears to be more targeted now, people still generally, view the activity for days to come and avoid the areas. So it's not back to business as usual, even though the agents have left. They haven't really left, but even though the operation has ended, I would recommend as policy, really reaching here, because the federal government wouldn't do this right now, but the type of assistance we received during COVID was instrumental in keeping all of us afloat, whether it be a PPP loan based on the amount of revenue that we can show that we've lost and actual sustained losses backed by our numbers, or employee retention credits, the way that they were presented during COVID. Anything that can get us to embrace the uncertainty of opening a business, keeping a business open, without you having to be the backstop for it. And really, putting yourself in a poor financial situation by choosing to keep fighting another day, not really knowing if there's going to be a continuation of this or there's going to be another version of this.
Thank you. And Marcy? Absolutely.
What he said is 100% correct, but I believe that there's an opportunity. We often hear people talking about how 26th Street is the second revenue generating corridor in the city, second to Michigan Avenue. A proposal we gave at the Illinois Accountability Commission was for our legislators to consider a reallocation of the tax revenue that is generated by the businesses and the families of the community to come back to the community to create an economic recovery fund. We as nonprofit institutions, as business owners, are doing everything we can to raise dollars to provide economic support, but it is not enough. There's no way that we can actually help a business or a family come back from 2, 3, 4, 5 months of economic instability. And so I think that there's a way where it doesn't require an additional tax. It just requires a small percentage of reallocation of revenue that's already being generated to be reinvested into the community that helps generate those dollars.
And that would be from the state level, right?
That's right.
One of the things that I think just has been so apparent to me is what you all have experienced is worse than what happened during COVID, the impact to mental health, to children, to your businesses. And it does not escape me that this is self-imposed and that it is imposed by the federal government. And I just want to highlight that point for folks at home that haven't really seen this issue in that way. But it sounds like you all would agree with me that this is significantly worse than what occurred during COVID.
Yes, because it's targeted. It's business as usual in every other part of town. And I have a board position at the Illinois Restaurant Association, so I frequently meet with other restaurant owners across the city and across the state, and other people are expanding business as usual. You see it when we leave our communities, when we, go downtown, when we go to other areas that are not Latino, they are thriving. It's back to normal. So the nature of this, that it's a unique problem to us, is not a coincidence, and that is the hardest part to deal with mentally.
Yeah, and I think it was clear, especially in communities like Little Village, Brighton Park, Cicero, that became targets was because of the level of response that they saw from community. And what we noticed very quickly is that these agents, clusters of agents, caravans of cars, traveled with cameramen. And so they were in our communities wherever the most opposition that they received became better footage for their propaganda. And there was footage. You see Little Village on many of their videos on their website where they would come to agitate, to get a response, to paint us as violent, unhinged individuals, when really the violence and the unhingedness came from them. They created that in our communities. And so I think that's what makes it so much worse, that it was planned, it was analyzed. They saw what communities generated most of the material that they were looking for. It was not about public safety. It was not about removing criminals from our streets. It was attacking the communities that I believe they see as the biggest threat to their agenda.
Which is Mexican American communities, Latino communities.
Yes.
Thank you so much, panelists. Oh, did you want to add something, Dr. Stagno?
Yeah, I was just going to add how it's also different from COVID is I think people are experiencing a sense of betrayal. There is a total loss of trust in your own government, in your own country, and that's not going to be easily restored.
Thank you all. We appreciate your time and your testimony.
Yeah, thank you.
Now transition to panel 4B. So if we can have the panelists begin to come to the podium. transitioning to 4B.
Okay. We're very, it's not even on us. Impacted individuals and families. This is about centering the voices of individuals and families who have experienced the impact of immigration enforcement here in Chicago and the Chicago area. Thank you all for being here and for courageously sharing these important stories. Panelists, again, you have 6 minutes. There's a clock up here that'll let you know when you should kind of wrap up. And I'll go ahead and introduce the folks that we're going to hear from today. Christopher Parenti, the attorney for Marimar Martinez, Adam Gonzalez, El Valor, John Doe, an impacted individual who would be testifying behind the screen to protect their privacy and identity. Liliana Vargas, which is an alias for an impacted individual, impacted worker who will also testify behind the privacy screen, and Susana, a small business owner who also is operating under an alias. Okay, great. Thank you, panelists. We'll go ahead and start with you, Mr. Parenti.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. My name is Chris Parenti, and I am the attorney for Marimar Martinez. Marimar wanted to be here, but she is studying to get her full certificate to teach Montessori school, which is what she was doing before this all happened. So she's unavailable right now, but she will be watching this later. For those that don't know, Marimar was a 30-year-old U.S. citizen and a Montessori school teacher here in the Chicago area. She comes from a family of immigrants. On October 4th of 2025, it was a beautiful Saturday morning. She woke up and was on her way to donate clothes to her local church. En route to the donation spot, she spotted an ICE vehicle in her neighborhood, which she recognized as the individuals that had been terrorizing her neighbors. So she deviated from her plan to go to the clothes donation spot and followed the ICE vehicle, warning her neighbors, who again were out just doing yard work and typical Saturday morning things that people do in Chicago. All she did was beep her horn and rolled her window down, screaming "La migra, la migra," again, just to warn her friends and neighbors about what was happening and what she had seen in her community in the past few weeks where ICE was acting unlawfully. And as she followed these agents, at one point, the ICE vehicle swerved into her vehicle. She immediately panicked and stopped her vehicle. The ICE agent stopped his vehicle about 5 to 10 feet ahead of her. The ICE agent jumped out of the vehicle and within 2 seconds of opening his door, unloaded his service weapon 5 times, hitting her all 5 times, resulting in 7 bullet holes into her body with exit and entry wounds. Miramar was able to drive away a few more blocks where she called 911. She reported the ICE shooting. An ambulance responded and took her to the hospital where she was greeted by FBI agents who, despite being shot 5 times, pulled her out of the hospital, I think within 2 hours. She was brought back to FBI headquarters here in Chicago, where she was bleeding so profusely from the bandages that were just put on her that the agents recognized the danger to her life and had to take her back to a second hospital where she was properly treated. Stayed overnight, and from there she was brought here to the MCC in Chicago. And she was charged with assaulting a federal agent. Again, the claim was that she swerved into the agent, and then she tried to drive over the agent. The next morning, I represented her in court, where the government sought to detain her, despite being a 30-year-old U.S. citizen who was a Montessori school teacher with no criminal history. They argued to the court that she was a danger to the community. She was proud that parents from her Montessori school had packed the courtroom and were there in support of her. And the judge took a few minutes to deny the government's request to detain her pre-trial and released her. And shortly after that, she was indicted by the U.S. Attorney's Office and charged again with interfering and impeding with a federal agent. Shortly after that, the government's case quickly started to fall apart, most likely because it was based on a series of lies that we were able to expose. The first being just this narrative of trying to brand this Montessori school teacher with no criminal history as a domestic terrorist. From the time of her arrest, they put this message out there on the internet. They put it in tweets by Tricia McLaughlin. Kash Patel, the FBI director, tweeted out the wrong video, and it's still out there. He's never taken it down, showing a different incident that was not Miramar. They accused Miramar of being a doxer, and they attributed a quote to her about calling for violence towards ICE agents, which she never did, and we got discovery that proved that was wrong. Again, they never retracted that. The agents claimed that they were boxed in, and that's why they had to shoot her 5 times. We were able to obtain surveillance video that conclusively disproved that, which showed that the agents were lying about this situation, which again is why they ended up dismissing this case. The agent was allowed to remove his vehicle, which is the main piece of evidence in the case, from FBI custody on the same day. He drove that vehicle back to Maine, where he came from. And then he had the in-house Border Patrol mechanic buff out the damage, which prevented us from ever examining it to prove that it was the agent that hit her and not vice versa. And we recovered text messages from the agents, which are very troubling because it shows the mindset of these ICE agents as they patrol our neighborhoods, essentially joking with other ICE agents about shooting Miramar, which is disgusting behavior from federal law enforcement, in my opinion, as a former federal prosecutor. There was an email from Greg Bavino directly to the agent who shot Miramar, whose name was Charles Exum. Commander Bavino emailed Charles Exum within 3 hours of the shooting. While Miramar was still in the hospital, not knowing whether she would live or die, he is rewarding this agent, extending his retirement age and commending him for the great work he had done in Chicago, which presumably was the shooting of Miramar, which obviously there was no investigation of. So eventually the U.S. Attorney's Office sees that this case is a disaster, that they were lied to, at least in my opinion, by ICE, and they dismissed the entire indictment with prejudice. We are now suing the government separately, but we are also trying to hold Agent Charles Exum accountable. I think his actions are unlawful. I think there was lies about what happened that day, and we are hoping that the U.S. Attorney's Office will take seriously their pledges to us to look into this, and that one day he will be the defendant in a case brought by the Department of Justice.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Adam Gonzalez. I am General Counsel at El Valor, a Chicago nonprofit that has spent more than 50 years serving children, adults with disabilities, and immigrant families across Chicago. In this role, I helped prepare us for Operation Midway Blitz with Know Your Rights toolkits and emergency procedures for what to do if federal agents came to one of our daycares, group homes, or community centers. but today I first speak to you as a father. At 7 in the morning on November 5th, 2025, my world changed forever. My son Augie was only 18 months old. He had been going to Raito del Sol for almost a year. Drop off could be difficult for us, but we had a ritual. We would sit in the back of the car, read a book, take selfies, play, whatever it took until he was smiling and ready for the day. When I pulled into the parking lot that morning, something was off. A large black SUV was pinning a smaller car by the daycare entrance. I parked and tried to see what was happening. There was a commotion at the front door. That's when I saw ICE agents dragging someone out. I took out my phone and started recording. A woman was screaming from the back of the SUV, "Let me go. Help me, please." 3 armed masked federal agents shoved her in. Indifferent to the parents yelling at them to let her go. Indifferent to the babies being dropped off 10 feet away. And then they were gone. I volunteer with Rapid Response Networks. I had responded to ICE before. I knew what to do, or so I thought. Nothing can prepare you for this happening at your child's daycare, as parents are dropping off their babies. When I walked inside the daycare, I will never get over what I saw. Children crying, asking, "Are they going to deport us? Are they going to take us away? Why is everyone crying? Are we going to jail?" 3, 4, and 5-year-olds asking why their daycare was no longer safe, asking for their teachers, watching the adults in their lives have no answers for why their world had suddenly shattered. Then I saw something I still cannot get over. Teachers coming out of hiding. They had sheltered with children as ICE chased Miss Diana into the daycare, terrified that ICE would take them or take a child. I never thought I would witness people hiding to avoid being kidnapped by their own government, especially at a daycare. Then the realization settled in. Not everyone was safe. Lives changed in less than 30 minutes. I will never forget that day. I still have nightmares hearing the cries and screams from that morning. Showing up in force at a daycare is not a coincidence. That is a choice. And at El Valor, I see its consequences every day. When families fear leaving their home, children fall behind. Adults with disabilities lose the support that keeps them connected to the community. Parents cannot provide for their families, and our community falls into crisis. This administration has made a deliberate choice to make being Latino a crime. We cannot take our children to daycare, give them an education, go to church, or go to work without fear. We deserve better. We deserve a system that protects working people from unchecked power, not one that protects unchecked power from working people. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to thank you all for being here this day, and I also would like to thank God for the opportunity given of being in front of you. And I would like to give you a little testimony of all the things that I went through as during this operation in the Chicago area. So essentially, what happened back in last September. It was just another day going to work. And even though I was aware of the situation, because the whole thing, I believe, started happening in Chicago by August, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So we heard on the news, and I actually had the chance to see some ICE agents nearby my neighborhood. So yeah, I thought I was being careful, and I kept my life the same way. You know, going to work in the morning, go back home at night, and that particular day, I just went to work, and while I was going for lunch around noon, all of the sudden I got pulled over for this. What it seems to be because they didn't have any labels on the doors or anything, just the lights. So it looks like squad vehicles. I got surrendered for them. It was like 3 vehicles. They came out of the nowhere. I have no clue where they came from. But in a matter of seconds, they were knocking on my window, asking for my identification, and I showed them my driver's license. And while I was doing that, they opened up my door, put me on handcuffs, and put me on one of those squad cars. No questions asked. No, they didn't show me any order, any warning, nothing signed by a judge or whatever. So when I asked them exactly what was that about, they told me, what is this about? You know you are in the country illegally. So I don't know where they got the information from. I'm assuming they were judging just on the color of my skin. And that was mainly the main reason that I got pulled over. They were assuming that I was an undocumented person. So I kept asking this agent, let's say, because to me they were like bounty hunters, that's how they call them, because he never identified himself as an agent, as an ICE agent. So he kept saying, yes, we got an order. I'll show it to you in a minute. But essentially all he did, he just grabbed my name from my driver's license and he wrote it by hand on the top of a page. I didn't have the opportunity to read this page, but apparently that was the signed order by a judge, which I know it wasn't true. So after that, after being detained, they took us to Bradley, I believe is the name of this detention center in Chicago. Bridge, something, yeah. They took us to this detention center in Chicago, and we stayed there for about 24 hours. They gathered all my information, and within 24 hours, we were heading to the city of Baldwin, Michigan, where they kept me for 4 months. And in these 4 months, it was really, really hard. First of all, because there was not such a thing like bonds. There was no bonds, there was nothing. These guys essentially, the way they did this operation, they did so many things in a way where it was impossible for us to come up with a case. And I'm saying this because I have a citizen son, so my son couldn't help me. That didn't help. I've been in the country for 26 years. I've been paying taxes for 20 years. I got no criminal record, and still, I had 0 chances to get a relief. So after 2 months, there was a little hope about the Castañón Nava when the judge signed an order where it was about 600 people that we were detained without any order. So they were trying to give us this release with the Castañón Nava, but it didn't work that way either. They made an appeal on the judge decision, so we stayed there more time. That was the only hope for all of us to get out of the detention center, and it didn't work like that. And not only that, out of the 600 people on this list, I was on a special list. There was a special list with 15 guys, and I was on this list because I was a high risk. I don't know how they got this information, or I don't know what's the criteria they're using to classify people. And not only that, on this detention center in Baldwin, the population is roughly 1,500, and whoever wears red uniform, that's people with a bad background, with criminal record. Whoever wears blue, there's no criminal record. So how can you explain, out of a population of 1,400, there's only 100 people wearing red clothes? Meaning none of us had a criminal record whatsoever. All the people that I was able to meet during these 4 months, it was a hardworking people. And I met people from all over the world, China, India, you name it, Brazil, no criminal record. So I don't really understand what is the reason for the government to keep us locked up right there with no chances. We all pay taxes. We have no criminal records. And I don't think it's working. Is it working? So we definitely need your help to change these laws, because this is a really, really unfair system. I've heard a lot of people saying like abolish ICE. I'll say we might need ICE, but let's do the things on the right way. We got a fair system for, if you are a criminal, then yes, you need to leave this country. That was not my intention 26 years ago when I came from Mexico, when I came looking for a better life for my family. And I know I did a wrong thing by crossing the border illegally, but ever since I've been trying to be part of the community and pay taxes like the same way they want us to do. And I'm doing pretty much everything the same way a legit American citizen will do. And I really appreciate, I will appreciate if you guys can help us changing these laws or the way they act, because it is really unfair. Because of this situation, I am in a really bad moment right now because I got no job. After 6 court dates, I was able to get out on a bond. My first bond hearing was denied with no reason because they kept saying I was a flight risk. I do have a house, and like I mentioned before, I do have a citizen son. I had a steady job. I got a life right here. I came when I am 49 years old right now, and I came when I was 26. So half of my life I've been here. There's no reason for me to leave the country, and still they keep calling me a flight risk. And I got out with a bond after 6 courts, and they gave me a $10,000 bond. I'm sorry, when I qualified, just like everybody else, for a $1,500 bond, and still they gave me a $10,000 bond. And I got out, and I'm not able to work. If I work, I'll be breaking one of the bonds restrictions, so that's gonna get me in trouble. And I've been out for 4 months already, and I've been called for a checking with ICE, and that'll happen on June 15th. So God knows what's gonna happen. You know, I'm on fear again because now I gotta go back and see these guys, and whatever happened to me is gonna be on the officer criteria. Whether I have to wear an ankle monitor like a criminal, or download an app on my phone so they can keep track of me, or stay the way I am right now. So we really need you, please, to help us changing these laws on a more fair way for everybody, not just for Hispanic or any specific community. This is an issue for many countries, but not too much people talks about it, right? We focus mainly like on the Hispanic community, but there's a lot of good people out there who deserves a better opportunity than what we got right now these days. Thank you very much.
The next individual is Liliana Vargas, by alias. Not here.
Oh, she's there.
Susana. I apologize. We're going The next person is Susana, the small business owner, and that's an alias. And please keep your remarks to 6 minutes, please.
My name is Susana, and for 35 years I have lived in the area of Pilsen and Little Village. I was a teaching artist with a community arts organization. I was able to meet many parents, and I saw their struggles. And as a single mother myself, I understood what it meant to work hard and get your dreams going. After I finished teaching, I decided that I wanted to help my community in another way. I opened a business in massage therapy because I understood the struggles of pain, of bodily pain, of people working every day and not having any comfort, going to the doctor and getting a pill. I wanted to create a healing space that the community participate. And it was all growing, it was all wonderful. Everybody was coming from different neighborhoods around Little Village, Bridgeport, Pilsen, the Lawndale community. We're all participating. Once the raids started, my clients were afraid to come out. They would call me and cancel. They said that they were afraid. We had to lock our doors because they were in the surrounding area. We can hear the whistles. We can hear the people just yelling and screaming to run, hiding. And it was so painful for me because it is such a devastating thing to see your community suffer so much. As the struggles that you even try to survive every day to feed your children, to pay your rent. And I thought I was going to lose my business, but I was able to acquire some loans from friends and continue. I want to build a community of healing. I want to build a community also where young students who have graduated from massage school can get other training and become better healers for our community. I am hoping that things will change soon and that we can support each other in giving our community what they need. We need the support of everyone. We need to start speaking out more and stop being afraid. We have been struggling. Since I was a teenager, I have been struggling with the racism. I have been part of many movements to help our community become stable. And it just seems that every time we put a brick, somebody knocks it down. Every time we try to build something, they want to break it down. And I'm tired of being broken. I will not be broken anymore, and I will continue this struggle to my death. So please, everyone, stand up and stop being afraid. I will continue until I die.
Buenas tardes. Gracias por invitarme a esta importante audiencia. Soy una mujer luchadora que no tengo miedo de hablar para defender mis derechos, pero en esta administración conocida por represalias, hoy no voy a decir mi nombre, y no es porque tenga miedo, sino porque sabemos que somos atacados todas aquellas personas que alzamos nuestra voz para exigir nuestros derechos como seres humanos. Soy esposa, madre, trabajadora y orgullosamente de ser miembro de Arroz Chicago. Tengo 25 años viviendo en Chicago, en los Estados Unidos, el cual considero que es mi país. Vivo aquí, trabajo aquí, pago impuestos, aquí tengo mi familia, he forjado y echado raíces por lo cual considero que es mi país. Yo trabajo en restaurante, tengo 17 años laborando en el mismo lugar. El trabajo es pesado, muy pesado. Hacemos de todo, nos ponemos a limpiar, preparamos comida, servimos clientes, termina la jornada y continuamos haciendo limpieza hasta cerrar. No trabajo porque yo me sienta feliz, yo sé que lo hago, pero también sé que el trabajo es más pesado cuando somos atacados y aún así tenemos que trabajar, tengo que pagar biles, tengo que comer, tengo que pagar los biles de hospitales. No es solo el trabajo que es pesado, sino el trato que nos dan como trabajadores. Hemos sufrido represalias cuando defendemos nuestros derechos o pedimos aumento de sueldo. La verdad es que hay muchos problemas y siempre los ha habido durante el trabajo, pero ahora con esta administración, con este Midway Bliss, ha sido peor, porque sentimos que no podemos hablar, nos sentimos atemorizados al poder expresarnos y al exigir un beneficio para nuestra persona. Hemos tenido muchos problemas, violaciones de la ley, días de enfermedad, limitaciones para usar el baño, nos controlan el tiempo para poder ir al baño, no nos permiten llevar nuestra propia agua, quieren que usemos el agua de la llave, el cual sabemos que no es favorable para nuestra salud. Por lo menos antes, como grupo nos uníamos y nos sentíamos con valor de poder exigir nuestros derechos o pedir un aumento de sueldo, pero ahora hay mucho temor en los trabajadores. Por mi parte, yo conozco mis derechos y yo sé que conmigo no se meten porque saben que yo sé defenderme. Pero veo el miedo en los ojos de mis compañeros, especialmente aquellas personas que acaban de llegar como refugiados. El que tiene menos tiempo en este país son maltratados, son más vulnerables porque no conocen sus derechos. No saben que tienen derecho a días de enfermedad, que tienen derecho a tomar su hora de lonche o que pueden ir al baño las veces que ellos sea necesario. La economía es muy dura en estos momentos, pero sabemos que tenemos que trabajar, sabemos que hay miedo porque hay mucha migra. Y los patrones saben esto, están usando este miedo para nosotros como migrantes, ya que esta administración les da el poder de exigirnos a nosotros seguir trabajando y no alzar nuestra voz. Siento que los patrones tienen menos vergüenza, se podría decir, y piensan que tienen el derecho de usarnos como trabajadores. Como dije, no tengo miedo de mis patrones, pero sí estoy preocupada de la migra. Toda mi familia y yo, mi esposo y mis hijos, no nos sentimos seguros. Durante esta administración de Midway Bliss, la migra secuestró a mi cuñado. Desde este tiempo, toda nuestra familia usamos una aplicación de ubicación. Sentimos que no podemos mudarnos libremente aquí en nuestro país y claro que extrañamos mucho a mi cuñado. Su esposa y su hija de 9 años quedaron solos, vulnerables. Es triste ver a mi sobrina crecer sin su papá. Es la única hija y sé que ella, su papá era su fuerte, pues es su única hija. Y ahora no está. Cuando mi esposo vamos a ver la casa, le dice, tío, ¿cuándo va a venir mi papá? Y mi esposo no le puede decir nada. Simplemente le dice, mi hija, no sé, pero tienes que ser fuerte y salir adelante, pues estás sola con tu mamá. Durante el secuestro de mi cuñado fue muy difícil, pues estuvo 4 meses encerrado en Mississippi. Él nos hablaba y nos decía, cuídense mucho porque estar aquí es un infierno. Mucha gente llega sucios, mojados. Son trabajadores, no son criminales. Y si esa gente que solamente viene a trabajar nos tratan de esa manera, ¿qué podemos esperar de los que en realidad son criminales? Nosotros solo somos trabajadores. Nuestro único error y pecado fue venir a este país pensando darles un mejor futuro a nuestros hijos. Yo soy madre de 2 hijos. Mi niña tenía 3 años, mi hijo 5 cuando vine a este país. Pero yo vine con la ilusión de poder darles una carrera. Y sí se las di con mucho esfuerzo. Trabajamos 2 turnos, mi esposo y yo, para no depender del gobierno ni de beca. Nos costó mucho, mucho trabajo, pero mi hijo se graduó y mi hija también. Pero ahora mi hijo me dice, mami, no sé por qué venimos a este país, ¿por qué me trajiste? Si a pesar de que tengo mi carrera, no puedo, no me siento libre, no me siento contento. Nos sentimos perseguidos, señalados por ser hispanos. Pero sé que tenemos que luchar y seguir adelante. Mis hijos son DACA y están sufriendo lo mismo que todos los que estamos acá, porque no saben qué va a pasar con ellos. Pero solo tengo que darles una esperanza y no dejar que ellos se caigan. Siento que no vivo en esta misma ciudad como antes. Antes me sentía libre, salíamos como familia, podíamos ir libremente a un concierto o simplemente al centro a visitar como familia. Ahora no podemos hacer nada de eso porque salimos y nos sentimos atemorizados, aterrorizados, porque solamente estamos al acecho, ver qué cosa hay atrás de nosotros, porque no sabemos en qué momento nos va a tocar. Si ya tenemos una persona afuera y solamente está mi esposo, tenemos que cuidarnos, pero tenemos que seguir luchando, porque yo trabajo aquí, pago taxas, y cuando yo pago mis taxas no me dicen si soy o no soy con papeles. Ahí sí no ven nada de eso. Pero nosotros venimos a luchar. Solamente queremos trabajar, queremos que se nos respete, que nos reconozcan como seres humanos y que también sepan que nosotros somos contribuyentes para este país. Trabajamos mucho y gracias a toda la mano de obra barata, porque eso es lo que somos un número barato y tenemos que seguir trabajando y todos los ricos tienen lo que tienen gracias a la mano barata del inmigrante. Pero no vamos a dejarnos atacar sin nosotros responder. Sabemos que los patrones, los ricos, sí están enriqueciéndose más, pero no nos vamos a dejar. Vamos a seguir organizándonos y sé que juntos vamos a salir adelante. Gracias.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me to this important hearing. I'm a brave woman, and I don't have a fear to speak out and to defend my rights. But with this administration that is known for the retaliation, I'm not going to use my name. I am a person that speaks out to demand her rights and to be treated as a human being. I'm a wife, a mother, I'm a hard worker, and I'm a proud member of Arise Chicago. I have been living in Chicago for 25 years in the United States. That is my country. I live here, I work here, I pay my taxes here, I have my family here. Therefore, I consider this my country because I got roots here. I work in a restaurant. I've been working there for 17 years. My work is hard. It's very hard. We have to do everything. We have to clean, we have to prepare the food, we have to take care of the clients, everything. And at the end of the day, we had to clean before we close. I do not work because I'm happy. I work because I have a family. I had to pay bills, I have to eat, I had to pay for all the hospital bills that I have. It's not only the job that is hard, it's the treatment that we get as workers. we have suffered retaliation when we fight for our rights or when we ask for a pay raise. The truth is that we have always had problems at work. And now with this administration, it has been worse because we feel that we cannot talk. We feel intimidated to express ourselves or to be able to demand a benefit for us. We have had a lot of problems, violations of the law with the sick days, limitations to go to the bathroom because they want to control our time that we used to go to the bathroom. We cannot bring our own water to work. They want us to drink the water from the faucet, which we all know is not good for our health. At least in a group, we feel that we are empowered to defend ourselves and to ask for better conditions and more respect. But now there's a lot of fear among the workers. And I know my rights, so the bosses don't mess with me. I know how to defend myself, but I can see the fear in the eyes of my coworkers, especially the refugees, because the ones that are new here, they are more vulnerable and they are mistreated because everything is new. They know their rights. They don't know that they have the right to go to lunch. They have the right to go to the bathroom. They have the right for sick days. And our bosses know that. They are using this fear for many immigrants. And this administration is giving them the power to exploit the rights of the workers. And I feel that the bosses have no shame and they think that they have the right to abuse their workers. Like I said, I'm not afraid of my bosses, but I am worried about La Migra, the Border Patrol, all my family, myself, my husband, my kids. And during Operation Midway Bliss, Border Patrol kidnapped my brother-in-law. And all that time, all the members in my family used a location app because we feel that we cannot move around freely here in our country. And of course that we miss my brother-in-law a lot. And his wife and his daughter, that is 9 years old, are alone. They're vulnerable. We help them in whatever we can financially, but it's hard to see my niece to grow without a father. And then sometimes he asks my husband, "Uncle, when is my daddy coming?" So he's got to say, "Be strong. It's only you and your mother." I feel that I don't live in the same city like before because now I have to take my time and be cautious because I don't feel free. I feel persecuted, like someone is always after me. And my brother-in-law was 4 months in Mississippi, and he said, "Be careful. This is hell. Some people come here and they're dirty, they're wet, but I cannot leave my work. I'm afraid, but I cannot stay home. We go out with fear, yes, but we go." And this attack is direct. But we're not gonna let them attack without not having an answer. And we're gonna keep on going. And sometimes, because I came here when my daughter was 3 years old and my son was 5 years old, and my husband and I worked 2 shifts. And now, even though my son has a career, sometimes he tells me, "Why are we here? I mean, I have a career, but I am not happy. I don't feel free. I want you to know that both of my kids have DACA, but we cannot lose hope. And together, we're gonna keep on going."
Well, I just want to thank all the panelists for being here today. Thank you for sharing your stories. We may have time for just one question. It's kind of hard to pick what question to ask here in this, but Mr. Parenti, what we saw in the news and what happened to Marimar Martinez with her being criminally prosecuted as a means of covering up what happened was just such a shock to me. And all I could think about was what comes next for her. And that's all I can think about for each of the folks that have testified today. What comes next? What is the other side of the pain that has been inflicted? How much more has this impacted Marimar's life? Is she having to expunge her criminal record? I mean, what does this look like for her long term in terms of her recovery? Just if you would share a little bit more specific to her, and if Adam, if you would like to share personally for you, what comes next.
Yeah, I mean, I think first, from just speaking with Marimar, over the last few months, it's the mental part of this, right? Every morning she wakes up and she said she looks in the mirror, and I mean, she has holes in her body that will never go away, and it's that trauma plus knowing that her own government, not only did this to her, but then has branded her forever on social media and the internet as a domestic terrorist, and we've been fighting with DHS and the U.S. Attorney's Office to get DHS to take these things down, and they just won't back down, right? They won't remove inaccurate press releases and tweets and everything else that this administration uses to demonize people and shape a false narrative. From the beginning, they said that Marimar rammed the agents. I mean, I got to cross-examine the agent at issue here, Charles Exum, and he admitted on the stand that she never rammed them. And even still, DHS won't retract those press releases. So there's we're dealing with an administration that just does not seem to care about the truth, and they think that if they just keep repeating lies, that eventually, people will believe them. And unfortunately, that's true, which is why I think town hall meetings and things like this are so important to document what's going on now, because there will be a time in this country when people realize all the shamefulness of our government's conduct at this time, and I want the truth to be documented so that our kids and their kids will see that the truth will win overall. But I mean, it's going to be a long road for Marimar. Like I said, we filed a FTCA claim. We're going to sue the government here in federal court. And I've been on the U.S. Attorney's Office, weekly to get charges brought against Charles Exum, and I think one day we will, whether it's in this administration or the next.
What was said, I think one of the most important things we could do is tell our stories and advocate to make sure that everyone knows the truth. I know this administration, after this happened, lied about what happened. They said it was a routine stop. They did not want to go into how they did chase her into a daycare. Many parents had videos, many parents had stories of what happened. It was put in the media, and when they were confronted, they finally backed down. So when the narrative has enough behind it, when there's enough people who go out of their way to record these things, when there's enough people who speak up, they can change and they will change. And I think that's what we have to do as the next steps, is never forget that we do have power. We have our voices. With social media, we can amplify much faster than ever before. And I think we just have to have that courage to not back away when things get hard, to not back down, because they will intimidate us. They will try to stop us from speaking out. And the best thing we can do is to speak out, to advocate, to make sure that we go to places like this and know that this did happen, this was real.
Something. The question that you asked, Madam Chair, and the response that Mr. Parente gave made me think of something. It's not so much a question, but I'd be interested in your thoughts on this. I mean, your client in particular is a victim of literally the weaponization of government. And we've seen in the last few days, the federal government has created this fund, the weaponization fund. I wonder what would happen if all those individuals who have been victimized by the government as part of these operations, these enforcement operations, went ahead and submitted claims to that fund and sought their day of justice and sought to flood that fund for people who have really been victimized by our government.
Yeah, and we thought about that, and we'll do it. I mean, we all know what will happen when we do it, but there's that. I represent a defendant in the Broadview 6 case that's fallen apart as well for the government. And again, once that's done, I think we'll file a claim on their behalf as well. But, again, I used to work at the U.S. Attorney's Office of 15 years as a federal prosecutor. I was in DOJ. To me, it's just destroying everything that I believed in and work with. And look, there's plenty of good agents out there. There's good ICE agents. There's good FBI agents. There's good ATF agents. In fact, the majority are. I don't know what has gone on in this culture right now where they're rewarding the wrong people. They're promoting Charles Exum 3 hours after he shoots a woman without any investigation. That's not the Department of Justice I worked for.
Well, Thank you again for your comments. Thank you to all of our panelists who participated today. We're closing out the end of a very long day where we heard a lot of testimony. I want to thank the audience members for being here, for listening, for feeling what has happened. I know that this has brought up a lot of emotions in a lot of us, and including myself. And I think that it is a reflection of the love and belief that we have in the promise of this country. We're here because we want to document the truth, because the truth is powerful. You know, we need to tell the story. We need to be honest about what happened so it doesn't repeat itself, right? There is an assault on the truth, and we are combating that. This hearing is about combating that. The hearings that we've had before, that we're going to have into the future, are about combating that. And it is about centering the impacted individuals, which, you know, for most cases, currently it is Latinos that have been racially profiled and targeted, especially following the Noam v. Perdomo case and the Kavanaugh stops that have resulted following the Supreme Court's decision in September. So, you know, I'm here as chair of the commission. This is not an official hearing by the Commission on Civil Rights, but my plan is to take this back to the commission to continue pushing for us to look at this issue. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus has asked the Commission on Civil Rights to look at racial profiling and the impact of Latinos across the country. That request is still pending, and I hope to share this with my fellow commissioners. Even though we have differing views on this issue, I hope that we could come together and address the most pressing civil rights issue of our lifetime. So with that, Marty, do you have some last comments?
Just very, very briefly, today we heard stories of resistance, stories of resilience, and powerful stories, but painful stories. And while the Latino community is at the epicenter of this, I think we heard today from the Asian community, the Muslim community, the African immigrant community, that this affects them too, and so many other communities that couldn't be here today. And when I heard Susana say that she was tired of being broken, it reminded me that it's easy to break a branch when it's by itself. But when you bundle us together, we create something that can't be broken, something that cannot be bent. We together, experiencing these challenges and responding to these challenges together, we are mightier than a branch. We are mightier than 1,000-year red oak, because only together will we get through this. And don't doubt, even though we heard a lot of very heavy and dark things today, truthful things, do not lose hope. At the end of the day, we will get through this because we've gotten through this before. We will get through this, and we're going to rebuild this country because we built this country in the first place. And no matter how many of us they deport, no matter how many of us they threaten, no matter how many of us they try to denaturalize, it's too late. Morality's on our side, justice is on our side, and demographics. They're not going to change what this country is going to be and what it is now and in the future, because we already won that. But we are going to continue the fight until we find opportunities to repair and restore and rebuild. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Thank you for closing us out. Thank you.